Welcome to the Game of Gymnastics podcast. This week, I'm joined by Luke Carson, an ex-Irish gymnast who's competed at the World and European Championships, turned coach of Rhys McClenaghan, Ireland's first gold medal winner in the Olympics in gymnastics, and is now the founder of Origin Gymnastics, Northern Ireland's largest gymnastics club. We'll talk about his transition into coaching, his experience coaching Rhys, and his ambition for the future and how he approaches progress. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Game of Gymnastics podcast. Thank you very much for listening. How are you doing?
Yeah, life's good. I can't complain. It's been very interesting over the last few years, in particular, obviously post-Olympics. It's been an interesting journey for many different reasons, but life's very good. I have nothing to complain about.
So you started as a gymnast yourself, competing for Ireland in multiple world and European championships. What were those experiences like?
Yeah, overall they were very positive. You know, I didn't really have a coach at all or any sense of a program until I moved to England to try and just qualify to the 2010 Commonwealth Games. My goal was just to move over there for 6 months to a year at the most, and just to try and really up what I was doing, because I had no sense of what an actual program was. And, you know, prior to me moving over to Huntingdon, it was kind of just, what skills can you do? Throw them in a routine and wing it and hope for the best. So that's obviously no way to train properly. So when I went over there, I had my eyes really open to what the world of gymnastics really truly was. And it was very inspiring for me. So I loved every moment of it. And I ended up staying there for nearly 5 years in the end, because I couldn't get enough of it. I just wanted to know everything about what those guys were doing, how they were being taught, with kind of skill development. And that's really where my love of gymnastics absolutely skyrocketed. I became, you know, totally obsessed and fell in love with everything that represented gymnastics. And that's really why I am a coach, was because of my experience and time there at Huntingdon. So, you know, I went over there and I had an excellent time. I made the bestest of friends that I still am in contact here today. And then, you know, I got to travel the world, and I improved as I stayed there. I had a lot of injuries along the way, and, you know, luck was never really truly on my side. And every time I felt like, oh, I was starting to feel like, you know, a bit of a real gymnast here, then I get some sort of injury and that would just knock me back. But I kept on going as long as I physically could.
Nice. Well, I mean, you say you weren't like the best gymnast, but you made multiple, like you qualified for multiple world championships. There's no mean feat.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, from the standard of today and even the standard there, it's nothing compared to what the guys are doing now. And, you know, my true calling wasn't as a gymnast. That was just the process to becoming a coach, and everything I learned, and all the mistakes I made as a gymnast. I was able to bring them forward and make sure that anyone that I was working with could learn from those mistakes and learn from those learnings and teachings and experiences of traveling the world and learning from the best of the best and being around that elite culture. That's really what I was able to bring forward into my coaching career.
Nice. So do you think, having been a gymnast yourself, and quite recently as well, does that help you empathize, like understand your gymnasts?
Yeah, for sure. But the time has now elapsed long enough that recall is becoming harder, which is concerning to me, whether that's a memory issue or the fact that I'm just getting older. But yeah, that general recall of being able to understand the feeling and emotions of a skill or a routine or an experience or a program, that's always really handy to have. It's not an absolute necessity, but I think it's a nice little card to be able to play, because you can straight away just get into the mind of the gymnast. The problem is it was very quick for all my gymnasts to surpass anything I ever did. So that recall only had a short life, but then, you know, you just learn as you develop.
Fair enough. And what was that transition like for you from gymnast to coach?
I loved it. It was amazing. It wasn't something that I ever set out at a young age thinking I'm going to grow up and be a gymnastics coach. I've always been very ambitious with what I wanted to do with my life. And I've always chased, you know, certain things that were going to give me this life that I wanted, you know, that I was visualizing from a young age. And gymnastics coach never really fit into that vision. but the passion and the love that I have for gymnastics was just, it was too much. It was all I could think about. So when I did make that transition, really, I had to medically finish gymnastics altogether. And so I was kind of left like, right, well, I can do X, Y, or Z. And then an opportunity came up to coach gymnastics. And I thought, you know what, I see a blank canvas within Ireland that, I really feel I can take everything that I've learned off all the guys at Huntingdon, Paul Hall, Ben Howells, and then all the elite gymnasts that are there, Luke, Lewis, Dan, all those guys that are just absolutely oozing with talent and elite gymnastics. Then I could take everything I've learned there, bring that to Northern Ireland, into Ireland, and as I said, see that as a blank canvas to be able to produce elite gymnastics for what those guys were doing. I was like, I think I could produce that. I'm pretty confident if I get the right group of guys, I could produce that, and it's what I did go on to do. So I loved it, and the amazing thing was, Rhys started working with me straight away. He was around 13 years old at that stage. And as a result of that, um, just real passion, which he loved, because he's very ambitious. He's very growth mindset orientated. He loves to learn. He loves the intricacies of sports and competing and culture around the world. And so we really vibed off each other really, really well. And I think that really helped his early career, because we were just constantly going back and forth with ideas and just passion for gymnastics. We were both just looking at YouTube videos of past competitions and all things like that. So we were able to use that and just absolutely streamline the process. I was filled with ideas from a coaching point of view of what I wanted to do. He was at the perfect age where he just wanted to learn everything and anything pertaining to gymnastics, and the two of us just hit it off. And so what happened then was, it really wasn't too long until I was back on the international circuit again, and seeing all the people that were still because it really wasn't that long that all the guys that I would have been competing alongside, my gymnast now was starting to compete alongside them. And it was a really interesting transition. So it was lovely, because I think that's one of the things elite athletes can miss a lot, is that high pressure situation, which is amazing. Like, there's nothing will make you feel more alive than walking out into a stadium that's packed full of thousands of people for a sporting event that you're involved with. Like, that is living, and it's one of the best experiences, no matter whether it's Paris Olympic Games or whether it's a World Cup, or whether it's a national championships. If there's lots and lots of people there and there's real life pressure, and your gymnast has a one-time opportunity to be able to put their hand up and compete, that's living. As far as I'm concerned, that's living. And so I was able to experience that straight away again, but from a different perspective, because now I'm the coach and I'm not that person putting my hand up. But it's way worse as a coach. It's that pressure, because from a coaching point of view, you're just like, well, I'm responsible for everything to do with this gymnast. So if that's certainly my mindset was, from a young age, if that gymnast didn't achieve their maximum potential, that's on me as coach. I didn't do something correct there. I didn't psychologically prepare them correctly. I didn't physically prepare them correctly. Something was up there. And I always took that onus on to myself. And so I left no stone unturned. I just went, like, I would wake up in the middle of the night. I'd be writing notes. I'd be voice noting myself. I'd be thinking about it nonstop. And that worked, because, that process was very successful.
Yeah, sounds it. Yeah, it must have been weird, like, going from gymnast to coach, being still on the competition floor. Did you have, like, gymnasts coming up to you, like, assuming you were competing or something?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, it did happen. But weirdly, there was a lot of people just assumed like Rhys was like a relative or like a son or something, and be like, "Oh, that's really cool." It's like, no, definitely not. I don't even think the mathematics is possible there. But yeah, it was really cool. But it was nice though, because I think what was advantageous in that was it allowed for a real natural induction into the international circuit for Rhys, because I was able to bring him around to all the different delegations. And with gymnastics, it's very friendly. When you go to an international, everyone's shaking hands and they're saying hello, they're catching up. And I was able to then bring Rhys along and be like, hey, it's so and so, blah blah blah, meet meet so and so. This isn't gymnast Rhys, and all the delegations then started to know, and it familiarizes him with that, and then it just takes out one potential, anxiety away from it all when it's a new experience, and so it just allowed that to be a much more comfortable experience, I think.
Nice. Well, was there like a turning point with Rhys where you sort of knew that he had the potential to become world Olympic champion?
Wasn't a turning point. I really truly believed it from within the first few months of working with him. In fact, I said it to his mum, because his mum was, obviously I was a young coach. I had no experience from a coaching point of view other than recreational gymnastics, and Rhys was obviously very talented. He was very rough around the edges, but he was a bit of a trickster, so he could wing, similar to what I was saying before in terms of my own gymnastics. He could throw skills, but that fundamental basics was missing. A nice handstand, a nice press to handstand, a nice circle shape, things of that nature. And so I could see that there was a really cool talent within him, but it just needed a lot of work. It needed to be stripped back and just totally redesigned. And I felt like if he was able to do that, then he really could become world champion. And so I said it to his mum after about 6 months. I said, I believe this boy can be world champion. I think he can be the best in the world. And she quoted that to me after he won his first world title in 2022. She quoted it to the BBC, and I had actually forgotten about it until she had said it again. So no, I knew early on that that potential was there, and therefore I really did feel from my point of view it was up to me to produce. I took that pressure on. I took that onus on myself to be able to be like, right, I believe he has the talent for it. So now I have to design a program. I have to have him psychologically and physically prepared to be able to take all of this on. And so I planned it. I wrote a 10-year plan in 2014 that was finishing with the 2024 Olympic Games. Every single thing was planned. The year to turn him senior a year early for experience, to which competitions he would do nationally, internationally. I planned it all, and so with that, it allowed me to be orientated along that journey, because gymnastics can be, ebbs and flows. It can be ups and downs, but that to be able to just constantly be tracking that, and it really was. I've actually created a graph now of that plan, and it's wonderful to see. It's so reassuring. So along the way, obviously now with all the types of tools that you can create lovely visuals for this. At the time, I was just doing it mostly just on my laptop, and it was just like spreadsheets and Excels and things of that nature and success rates. And I was able just to track that. So everything that I was believing and feeling, and Rhys was believing and feeling, was being backed up by the data that was showcasing it. And it just allowed us to remain orientated on that journey. And as Rhys and I would always say, we had that common goal. That common goal allowed us just to never falter. We turned up every single session. We did not leave any stone unturned.
That's crazy. That's so cool though that it actually like panned out. What was it like in Paris having all of that hard work pay off?
I, to be honest, like I've been asked that so many times, and my answer is I don't know yet. Like it's such an insane thing to have happened. The 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 statistics and the odds of that actually all working are so small. And we're from Ireland. We have no rich history in that. This was, as we're an outlier, an anomaly within that data, in that history. And there was nothing to suggest when we started this journey that that was likely or probable or possible. Yet we just defiantly were like, so let's go for it. Like, what's that? Why should we not aim for that? And so we did. We aimed for that. So I don't know I don't know how to answer that question, because it's so vast that I think it will take for me to retire and walk away and have time away from gymnastics and live a totally different life to be able to truly understand the magnitude of what actually happened. Because the way my mind works is that, and it is a bit of a double-edged sword. I I I have to plan. I have to be working towards something. Like, I need progress towards working towards something. So it was always the Olympic Games. It was always getting Rhys to X, Y, or Z, and it was always orientated around that. And so when that was achieved, it kind of was like, really unsettling for a while for me personally. um, I, I was really just like, well, what did I do? What does this mean? Like, was this worth it? Was this good? Was this bad? Like, and then you get everything from imposter syndrome to, like, no, absolutely, this was planned, designed, and delivered. This is amazing. But to what that actually means, I don't think I'll ever really know until gymnastics isn't an everyday part of my life, because all I will tend to do is just move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So in terms of my goal setting, the way I operate, the way I get up in the morning is I need goals. I need things to be working towards. And every single milestone along that 10-year journey was about achieving something, learning from it, packaging it up, and going on to the next thing. And so when it came to the Olympic Games, my process was trying to do that again and just, package it, learn from it, move on. But I wasn't sure what to move on to. And I think that's, the large reason to why I was just kind of like, what does this mean? Who am I? It's just gone into a complete existential crisis,
Yeah.
but which I think is quite natural. But again, upon reflection, I understand all of those emotions and feelings and things of that nature much more intricately now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, I won't touch too much on Paris again because you seem to be unaware of your own feelings towards it, which is fair enough. But you talked about like always being on to the next, always being on to like the next bigger comp, that sort of thing. So as those sort of stakes increase, as the pressure begins to build for bigger and bigger competitions, do you approach them in a different way? Like you and Rhys, do you prepare in a different way? Do you try and mentally prepare in a different way? What's the process?
Not really, no. I mean, every competition should be respected like the next, as far as I'm concerned. Every program has to, if we're writing a program and we're working towards something, the outcome remains the same. It's to maximize the potential of that program and that routine. So regardless of whether that's a national championships or the Olympic Games, that process remains the same. Sometimes what I might do if there is something that is more important, say for example Olympic Games, then I might extend the program just so I can collect more data. So, I might extend it by a couple of weeks so that I can figure out exactly where we are. So when it comes to success rate tracking and programming, that extra couple of weeks just allows me a bit more information, allows Rhys a bit more information to be able to hit the floor running so that we can just start the program right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, nothing more to add really. What's been like some of the most difficult parts of yours and Rhys's journey together?
There hasn't really been any issues. There's nothing. There's been no friction. We've never fallen out. I would say the only new kind of weird situation now is post Olympics, because we were chasing that for so long, and the everyday focus was upon that, and there was a kind of limbo period of what now. Um, but and just reassessing what the common goal therefore is after that's been achieved, because when you look back on it, like, everything we planned for, and I mean that, everything was achieved. We set out to be, in the early days, national champion, done. Okay, let's try and be a British champion, done. Let's try and be a World Cup champion, done. Let's try and be Commonwealth, European, World, Olympic. Every single title was achieved, and so when that is the case, again, going back to that, it is a very bizarre situation, because it's like, well, what is the motivation now? Because the motivation was achieving all of those things by maximizing all the effort and the work that's been put into it, and delivering the outcome, i.e. the routine, and delivering that under pressure and in a high stake environment. So is the motivation to redo all of that? Or is it, are we calling it a day? Is it done? Or are we continuing on for a whole another Olympic cycle, 2 Olympic cycles? So those conversations have been had. And the common goal remains the same now, of just absolutely going for it. Let's not hold back. Now, it is a different environment. It's a different world that we're living in now, post Olympics. Life is, very busy. There's a lot going on. I'm juggling a lot of things. I'm wearing a lot of different hats, but I'm enjoying that process. And I'm excited for what the LA Olympic cycle is going to hold. So, and he's looking in good form. And he's excited to get back out there and to compete, because 2025 was kind of a bit of a nothing burger because of he had injuries in terms of that elite international competition point of view. He wasn't able to compete because he had injuries. So now he's completely injury free, he's pain free, and he's ready to go. So those programs for this year are well and truly underway, and he's looking in good form. So it'll be exciting to get back out there on the international stage and start seeing how this new code serves him.
Very nice. Yeah. So I've seen him do like more apparatus than just pommels as well recently. So what is there to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's always good for stimulation. It's always good for just complementary fitness. Um, we're thinking about maybe for Commonwealth Games of doing multiple apparatus, because there's a prospect of a team. When it comes to a prospect of the team, then obviously more apparatus is beneficial, and he's a very good all-around gymnast. It's always going to come down to risk-free reward. You always have um, a higher risk for doing more apparatus, compared to doing one, especially when that one is pommels. The risk injury is fairly low on pommels, other than risks and injury and things of that nature. But to the likes of other apparatus, it's not all that problematic in terms of injuries. So it's always going to be risk-free reward. And when it comes down to qualification for Olympic Games or anything like that, then we just have to look at risk-free reward.
So zooming out a little bit, not really talking about Rhys, I saw that you are the founder of Origin Gymnastics. Could you tell us what that is and why you've started up?
Yeah, I mean, gymnastics, it's my life. It's all I've known for since I was 7 years old. I've basically been in a gym almost every day since then. So, it made sense. I'd always been focused on an end goal being to open my own gym. I always wanted that. And so the opportunity did arise in 2022, when I just made that final decision that that was what I was going to do. And to be perfectly honest with you, it was really hounded home after Tokyo Olympics, when the Tokyo Olympics didn't go to plan. And when he was in phenomenal form, he went to the Olympic Games, he qualified in first position into that final. Things were looking just as they were going to, the potential outcome for as Paris happened. I really did believe that he was going to be walking away as an Olympic champion in Tokyo, and then it didn't happen. And that whole experience after was really awful, from from both gymnast and coach point of view. But from a coach point of view, I really didn't like how vulnerable I felt after that. Of I felt like I just needed to be more than only a gymnastics coach. Um, Although gymnastics coaching has given me a life that is phenomenal, and I'm exceptionally grateful for everything it has given me, and I will continue to be a gymnastics coach for as long as my skills and experiences are useful. But I didn't like how vulnerable I felt after that. And so I'd made the decision on the journey back from Tokyo. In the airplane, I was writing my feelings and my thoughts down, and I wrote that now is the time. I'm gonna shift from talking about and dreaming about opening my own gym, and I'm gonna actively do this. I'm going to be looking at units. I'm going to be going and meeting landlords. I'm going to be getting all the finances in order, getting everything priced up, and start actioning everything. And so that process did take from on that journey back from Tokyo all the way to we launched in 2023, in May 2023. So it took that long to get it actually off the ground. it's a big risk. We're not a charity. We're not a CIC. We're a private company that I own. So it has to be fully financed by myself initially. And so that's a huge risk, just to empty everything I had and more into the potential of this business working. And I'm very proud and glad that I did, because now we're the largest gymnastics centre in Northern Ireland.
That's awesome. So obviously you brought Rhys with you. In general though, with your athletes in general, have you got more Irish gymnasts, like national gymnasts, that train at your gym?
Yes, there are other gymnasts that train here at Origin. Yeah, we've got Eamon Montgomery, David Martelli, Chester Enriquez, all have had international presence. So, Eamon's a World Cup gold medalist, Chester's an EOF gold medalist, and so those guys are doing really well. Now it's not just me. We've Conor McGovern here as a coach as well. He's doing an excellent job, and it's a nice little group that we have here. Now the being able to offer layers of squads and elite gymnastics within a club that is still early in its life is a financial risk. It's difficult to be able to do that because squads cost money. There's, they everything else has to go into squads in terms of finance. So we run a very successful recreational program, and we would have to siphon off loads of the profits and loads of that revenue into supporting that full squad system if we were going to have 5 or 6 different squads. So we're not there yet. We're not at that process. We're a recreational based gymnastics centre, and we just have a select few on that elite pathway that we're calling just an Olympic scholarship program. So we're just looking after them to make sure they have everything they need to pursue, the Olympic Games and everything on its way. So it's difficult, but we've got great support from the NGB. We've got our national centre down in Dublin, which is an insanely impressive gymnastics centre. Like, it has everything that you can imagine and some more, and we have access to that anytime that we need. So we're well supported there.
Nice. So when it comes to those other athletes as well as Rhys himself, what's most important to you when it comes to your athletes and their progression?
What's most important, to be honest now, is that they enjoy that process. They enjoy gymnastics. If you're not in love with the sport, then it's difficult to be able to get through those hard times, and it's difficult to be able to enjoy the day-to-day slog of trying to do gymnastics, because it's a very difficult sport. It requires a lot. It requires a lot of time. It requires a lot of energy, a lot of dedication, a lot of sacrifices. So if you're not enjoying that, then it's not worth it. There's so much you can do with your life, that you have to be enjoying that process. So it's important to me anyone coming in understands that, and that there's a real nice, culture within that, elite program that we do have here, between those boys, that they all are just in love with the game. They're in love with that growing and progressing in everything pertaining to gymnastics. And as long as that's the case, then I'll be involved with it.
Fair enough. Yeah, that works. So I know also that in regards to like progressing gymnasts, for example, you have a strong focus on S&C. How does that come about in terms of your programming?
Well, strength and conditioning is a integral part of any athlete, but in gymnastics, it's particular. It's particularly important because you have to have that basic strength, and then you have to have that advanced strength, and to be able to make that connection from one to the other, you have to have a good understanding of how to link the two. So I'm a big believer of, obviously you have your general fitness, but everything else then should be pertaining to skills in a very correlated way. So I wouldn't be that big of a fan of just blindly doing chin-ups or something like that, because what is the actual direct correlation to helping your gymnastics? So I like trying to think outside the box on how to correlate everyday conditioning, or weekly conditioning, and then allowing that to increase skill awareness and skill progression.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if Like I've been thinking about this a lot recently too. Like if it's not helping you do a particular skill or movement that you would use in gymnastics, then what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult to manage because you do have to have obviously general strength and conditioning, that
Yeah.
baseline understanding, and that will require, the likes of chin-ups or bike work or things of that nature. But apart from that, and on top of that, it has to be correlated, and there's so much variation that you can do in gymnastics, that it can become exciting and it could become fun.
Yeah, definitely. In a similar vein, I know that you also have a keen interest in psychology. So, how does that play a role in your coaching?
I think over the last 10 years, it's been my strongest feat as a coach because the psychology side of gymnastics in particular is huge. And I was very fond of curating lots of situations to be able to improve psychology, to stress test certain situations. So, for example, on the lead up to Olympic Games, I wanted to apply as much pressure onto Rhys as possible in a healthy way to be able to constantly add to this because I knew that the potential outcome was an Olympic Games final, that you could hear a pin drop in the audience, and the likelihood is it was going to be one of the highest standard pommel finals ever. Looking at what all the World Cups and previous World Championships were showcasing, so I knew that was going to be a potential outcome. And so we did things like live exhibition sessions, which I'm a huge fan of, where we would invite, all the members from Origin, and we would rent out a sports hall, and we would just fill it with as many people as we could. So we did several of these on the lead up to Olympics, where we would have up to, like, say, as many as we were legally allowed to have in with fire safety. But I think, a lot of them, we had, 500 people sitting there watching, and it was essentially a control competition. And people loved it. So it allowed them to understand a little bit more about gymnastics. I was on the microphone explaining what gymnastics was and trying to spark a bigger interest in gymnastics, and, what was a pommel horse and what was this routine. And the routine Rhys was about to do was the routine he was hopefully going to do at the Olympic Games final that might just win a medal. And then therefore the audience, i.e. our members, our local community, were coming along on that journey and understanding the intricacies of gymnastics, because it can be quite confusing, if you're just watching it. People can watch gymnastics and just be in awe of it, but to understand it, how the score happens, what exactly is going on, I wanted to try and educate all of our members and the local community. And then I wanted to also then apply that pressure on to Rhys. So he would come in, there would be a pommel horse only in this massive sports hall. It was set up, it was anchored, it was all ready to go. We'd have hundreds and hundreds of people there, and we'd make a whole show about it. And he would come in, he'd do his warm up just like he would in a competition. We timed it, we had everything. That's what I mean, that we curated it exactly like it would be in an Olympic Games final. And then he put his hand up, facing the audience, did the job, competed. And then we had that whole Q&A, and it was fun and it was cool. And we made a whole show about it. And so that was me trying to create the psychological strength within him that I knew that he needed. I knew he had the ambition. I knew that he had the focus for it. I knew that he had the talent, but the psychology is something that really needs worked on. And he's a very growth mindset oriented person as well. So he's always seeking to improve every part of him. And so he was doing his own work within that. And so my job as a coach was just to curate these types of situations that then, he could walk away knowing, right, I'm ready. That's every single time that we did something like that. That was the goal, that he would walk away being like, hell yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. And so it worked.
Very nice. Yeah. Was that something you did almost in reaction to the Tokyo thing, or did you feel like you did enough work for that one?
No, we did that just on a smaller level. I didn't have as much autonomy back then, just because I didn't own my own gymnastics center back then. So it was a bit more difficult and bureaucratic to get something like that done. But what we did do was we would invite like some local schools, or if schools were into the national center where we were based for Tokyo. Obviously, it was very different because it was COVID times, and so it was impossible to do on that lead up. But prior to that, you know, if a local school was coming in, I would just say, I would basically go and hijack the session that they were having and be like, hey, can you come over here and get, you know, 40 kids just to sit by Pommel and watch? And that was about all we could really do then at that stage. But then obviously, you know, Tokyo was a very bizarre Olympic Games, just with no interaction with anyone being allowed. So it was just different in that nature.
Fair enough. And on a similar note to the psychology of things, how do you often deal with mental blocks in gymnastics?
I mean, they're all very, very unique. So you know, Rhys he's had his own ones. You know, when it comes to floor work and you know, backwards and twisting and things of that nature. So it's very unique, each and every case. So it's quite difficult just to have a broad spectrum antidote to it. But you know, basic understandings, repetition, you know, volume of certain things. So if it is going backwards, for example, I can remember sessions where I'd say, you know, all right, well, let's do 100 standing backflips, and just do that till it's so monotonous and so second nature that you don't even have the time to think about it. You know, kind of build from that on forwards. But it's very difficult. It is hard to manage. You know, mental blocks are very challenging, and you know, hopefully we can. There is an antidote one day that just is the will be all and end all to finish them, because they can be very, very frustrating. The mind is a very complex thing. But psychology does come into it and try and understand it. And usually we'll have some sort of genesis to when it started, and you can reverse engineer that and try and break that down.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, on a completely different note, obviously now that Rhys has become such a huge name in gymnastics, do you think that Ireland is now seen as a serious nation in the sport?
Yeah, for sure. Rhys certainly is. In terms of a broad spectrum Irish gymnastics, then yeah, we're absolutely on our way. The Gymnastics Ireland, from an NGB point of view, are very well respected. You know, they're kind of seen as a gold standard here in Ireland in terms of their governance, in terms of their structure, in terms of their implications and what they're doing, and how they're applying that. And so, yes, for sure, from an international results point of view, you know, there's still more to be done. You know, when we start having different layers, different generations, and more depth to the success, then from an international stage point of view, then yes, we'll absolutely be. Because, you know, if we start producing team finals and, you know, multiple people qualifying to Olympic finals, world finals, European finals, because really, you know, at the moment it's Rhys is leading that way. He's the pioneer of that success, and long may that continue. Because usually if you're that trailblazer, you're clearing the debris in front of you, allowing a clearer path for those following through. And that's really what we can hope with Rita's success, is that, you know, people can believe that's possible. Because when you don't have that rich history within a country, then sometimes it is hard to believe something's possible, like becoming an Olympic champion. And, you know, I know from personal experience that you can't expect everyone just to be on board and just believe you 100% that, you know, that is possible. You're going to have to fight your case. You're going to have to self-advocate for these types of things, and you're just going to have to prove them wrong with success all the way. And so luckily we've had excellent support all the way through from Gymnastics Ireland. I remember very early on saying to them, just like I did to Rhys's mum, this can be the real thing here. Like, this can happen. I want everyone to believe me when I'm saying this, that he can be the best in the world. So this is the 10-year plan. Here's what I would like to happen. can we do this? Is the support, is the infrastructure there? And although when we first started, the Gymnastics Ireland that's today was very different back then, and everyone just worked exceptionally hard from a national governing body point of view to make everything happen. It was really excellent to see. The support there was phenomenal. And so we just had to prove it through success, and luckily we did have that support along the way.
A bit broader this time, because you can choose from anything, that whether it was as a gymnast or as a coach. But what's one thing that you want to have achieved, or that you have achieved in your gymnastics career? What's like the one thing that you want to have done?
From an elite point of view or a personal point of view,
Either.
anything pertaining to the gymnastics world.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's a good question, because my gymnastics world is now merging with the business world, and that's grabbed my attention, and I'm loving that new world that I've entered. It's very energizing. It's very motivating. Um, so I would answer with two parts to this. Um, One would be to qualify several people to LA Olympics. I think that would be phenomenal. I think that's possible. I do believe that that could be the case, and I think that's very motivating, because that's not something that I've experienced. Each of the Olympic Games that I've went to, it's with Rhys. And so it would be amazing to have, a bunch of them, those the gymnasts that we had mentioned. And there's a lot of really good guys coming up through Ireland now, where I'm watching and I'm looking at what they're doing, and it's proper elite gymnastics. It's serious stuff that could absolutely deliver on the world stage. And so that's super exciting to be able to be part of, and to help in any which way that I can. So yeah, having more people qualified to the LA Olympics than ever before in any of our other Olympic Games, that would be motivating. So I'm excited to do that. Also, I like the prospect of qualifying a team to this year's Commonwealth Games. That really excites me, because that's never been done before. And there's a great bunch of guys there that could do a pretty mean job of it. So I'm excited for the prospect of that, because I believe that can be a reality. And then the other part of that would be to expand on the company that I've started here at Origin Gymnastics. I want multiple facilities, I want multiple sites, I want different types of services, and I really want to be challenged from a business point of view to be able to expand and see what we can do here. Because what we've created here so far, and the team that we have now, it's really exciting. And I'm excited to see what that prospect has. I'm constantly working on things. I get up at 5:30 a.m. every morning, and I start my working day, and I don't stop until I'm falling asleep at night. After bedtime routines done with my kids, I jump up on my laptop and I'm trying to do a little bit more, because I cannot get enough of progress. It is what fuels me to keep going every single day. It energizes me like nothing else can. Um, and so the idea of building upon this company and seeing what else it can do, and the other opportunities it can bring, and what types of things and different routes that we can go there, that excites me. And then balancing the two, it can be difficult, wearing lots of different hats. So I'm CEO of this company. I've started it from the ground up, when I have 21 employees, training them, mentoring them, figuring out exactly what we're doing. We have a huge recreational program, but then also making sure that I'm still sharp as an elite coach. But then also I do consultancy work, and I do things of that nature. I do some public speakings for different companies, whether it's accountancy firms or whether it's other large companies, to be able to just be motivation talk. So I'm wearing all these hats, as well as trying to be the best version of myself. Making sure that I keep them fit and training 5 days a week, being a husband, being a father, and still trying to smile and wave through it all. But as long as I have that progress, and that I can look back on my day and feel a progress in one of those areas or all of those areas, I'm happy. If I don't get that, I'm very agitated. I'm very frustrated at the lack of progress or the lack of efficiency throughout that day. So I'm constantly working towards something. So balancing it all and learning and bettering myself along that journey is motivating.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean that sounds about right for someone like you. Just it sounds like so much though.
Yeah, but if you want extraordinary things in life, you have to put in extraordinary work. You have to do them. Like volume is always the key. You just doing more. And if I get to the point where I feel half five isn't enough to be able to do my whole day, I'll get up at half four. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure that I'm achieving whatever this level of success that I'm chasing is, and this vision that I constantly am creating in my head or have created in the past that I'm following, then I'm going to get that done.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, just a few more questions left. Shouldn't take too long. What's next for you and Rhys? Is it Commonwealth Games, then Euros, then potentially Worlds, and then pushing towards LA?
Yeah, so the guys are all getting ready for the World Cup series. So that's going to kick off not so long away. That's going to be in March. So there'll be all the World Cup Grand Prix. So it's Baku, Antalya, Doha, Croatia, all those World Cups. And then we've got Commonwealth Games, which is the big one, European Games, and then World Championships. Those are the big ones for this year. So it's exciting. You know, that program's started in December there. So now we're kicking into things and we're starting to see what's going to be possible, what's not going to be possible. So it's exciting.
A lot of big comps this year, then for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure, and it'll be interesting because this will be, you know, the kind of strategic choice last year was from a Gymnastics Ireland point of view was just not no international competitions. Just let's figure out the new code, keep everyone happy and healthy, and then 2026 hit the ground running, ready for what is now the LA Olympic cycle. So that process for LA is obviously beginning now. We're in it.
Yeah, definitely. What's one thing that you do that you think more coaches should do?
Cool. Um, I don't know. I'd feel arrogant saying, something that I think other coaches should do. It's a very broad spectrum. I mean, if every coach can put their head down on their pillow at the end of the night and think, I've done everything I could in this day to do what I said I was going to do. So whether you're a recreational coach and your job is to create a fun atmosphere for young children, or you're an elite coach and your job is to maximize elite performance, as long as when you put your head down at night and you're thinking, have I done everything that I could do? Then I think that you're an excellent coach in that regard, because it's very easy just to take the easy route and just kind of, show up and kind of do half a job that's not really going to deliver. And so it's important just to make sure that everyone's doing everything that they can do to the job that they've chosen, because gymnasts do rely on their coaches to be that that person showcasing what should be done, what can be done, and how it can be done. Obviously, that's more important for when you're a junior gymnast. You have to be doing everything for a junior gymnast. And when they're senior and they're experienced, you don't have to do quite as much in terms of that hands-on coaching. So you have to be a bit more strategic, and you plant little seeds here and there, and you let things grow. And there's a lot more psychology to the senior coaching game than there is physical hands-on coaching. But yeah, I think that would be my answer in terms of what I would suggest. Just work your hardest. I mean, like, life's short. Why not? If you're going to do something, just bloody well do it as hard as you can. Just go all in. There's an amazing saying that Quincy Jones said, I first heard it from him, which was, once a task has begun, never leave until it's done. Be thy labor great or small, do it well or not at all. And I love that, because it's just kind of like, right, well, if you're going to start something, do it as well as you humanly can. And then you can't be scared of failure, because at least you've tried your hardest. So as long as you're doing that, then that progress will be there, and that will be rewarding.
Very nice. All right, I got one more question for you. Now that you've experienced the podcast, who do you think would be a good person or type of person to get on next?
Well, my heart's always rooted in, the guys that showed me the love of gymnastics, which was all the Huntington crew of that era. So, anyone from that era, or from that club is going to be absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
And they'll have a lot of wisdom to share. The amount of wisdom and the knowledge those guys have, individually and collectively, is insane. It's
Yeah.
madness. So it will be, yeah, I'm sure it will make for good listening.
Okay. Cool. I'll try and get on that. I'll see what I can do. Thank you very much.
No problem at all.
And thank you very much for coming on. Thank you very much for listening to the Game of Gymnastics podcast. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.
See ya.